Good evening, Safe Space family. And thank you all for joining me tonight. This is Shelby Arrington, of course, with Safe Space. If you have never come by, Safe Space is a place of information, of exchanging ideas, of encouragement. The focus is letting you know that there's always hope in God, no matter what your situation, what you're doing, what you have done. There's always hope in him. He gives us brand new grace and mercies each and every day because he knew we would fall. I tell so many different stories on Safe Space because of that reason. I want you to know that stories of addiction, of loss, we've had a minister from my church on here talking about the different stages of grief. We've had my cousin talking about a 44-year addiction. We've had a friend of mine talking about her debilitating anxiety that she was literally suffering right in front of all of us. We were serving alongside her in church and friendships outside of church, and we had no idea that she was literally about to fall apart from debilitating anxiety. All of these stories have one common theme, that God, through other help, whether it's counseling or whatever you may need, is the way to your healing. Tonight, we have a wonderful young lady by the name of Veronica Keys. She has a beautiful testimony. Veronica reigns from the Bronx, New York, as you will hear in her lovely voice. She speaks so eloquently in her voice when I've spoken with her on the phone and in person at different times. It's very distinguished, in my opinion. I love to hear her speak. But she has a story. She is a wife. She is a mother of three. She married young, but she has a story of redemption, a story of survival, a story of God bringing her through, that she has named in her journal / book, blessed beyond bereavement. Well, I don't want to make beloved part of that title anyway. Blessed beyond bereavement. Welcome to Safe Space, Veronica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Shelby. Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm so glad that you accepted my invitation. I have been hearing about you for years, not knowing that we had been in each other's presence a number of times. A mutual friend of the both of ours, Elder Gail Walton, had spoken of you so highly and asked me to pray for you at different intervals, but I did not know that you had come to Alabama with her to my mom's homegoing service. Had no idea that it was you that was in my hometown, in my home church, and there with me on one of the most difficult days of my life. But I thank you for being a kind friend to her and being willing to make that journey with her.
Yes, yes. That I think that was at the beginning of me going through my journey of grief, and Elder Guild. I just love her. I truly love her. She spotted me in what I was going through, and she stood by me through this journey. And she said, "We're going on a ride. We're going on a road trip." And she explained to me that it was, your mom's home going. And I said, "Sure, I'll go."
Mhm.
And I was quiet in the background, but I was glad to be there to, you know, bid my farewells to your mother also.
Thank you so very much. That was so kind of you. But back to you and your story. Your story is riveting. Um, I was looking at some of the information that you shared with me. You're a retired postal worker.
Yes.
You married very young, right after high school. Was he a high school sweetheart, or did you meet him after high school?
Well, he wasn't a high school sweetheart. We attended the same school together. I believe we had one class in ninth grade, and I don't remember seeing him at all thereafter, throughout, because it was a huge school, it was a big school.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And what happened is in our senior year, we took a job in the neighborhood. It's like I think, believe a co-op. And I was working there first, and then he came maybe about a month or two later, and he had eyes on me from the beginning. And I did not like him, And
Uh-huh.
the reason I didn't like him was I was from the Bronx and he was from Brooklyn. And if
Oh,
you New
wow.
Yorker, if you're a New Yorker, you know that that's reason enough, It's, but He won my heart one day. He'd asked me several times to go to lunch with him and all, but he won my heart. He asked me to go to lunch with him, and I didn't go. And when he came back, he had this card, a scroll, just saying how much he liked me.
Mhm.
And just the idea of him to be able to express that or just think about, just to kind of think of me in that way. And it was like, okay, yeah, this is a good guy. I can't let this go. I can't let it go. He was considerate, thoughtful, and all of those things that we women look for, caring. And so I was 18 and we started to date.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we were engaged 1 year. We dated 1 year, engaged 1 year, and then we got married. Yeah.
So 2 years.
Yes, 2 years. Yeah.
So you were a very young bride.
I was 20 years old when I got married.
And
20.
three lovely blessings came
Yes, 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 yes,
from the union.
yes. So I have my oldest is Jaleesa, and she's now just made 30. Yep. And then son Javon, he just made 35. And
Mhm.
Jamal, and he would have been 30. Yep, he would have been 30.
What a blessing and what a wonderful story. I see here that one of the things that has shaped you into being the woman of God that you are was seeing your husband deal with his illness. Would you like to, for me, thinking about that, I've never experienced that, but I saw my mom go through it with my dad when I was about 10 or 11 years old. My dad had a terrible stroke at the age of 47.
Mm,
And it was so debilitating to, of course, he had extreme paralysis on, I think it was his left side. And seeing my mom having to shift into the role that it called for her, looking back now as an adult, as a woman, it had to be very hard because I was only probably around 10. I'm an only child, but when you have a husband that is the head of your household and he is a man of strength and a man of honor, that has to be kind of an adjustment and very hard. Especially, I see that he was ill for 24 years.
mhm. Yes, it was difficult. As I stated, we got married young, and you're 20 years old, you have no idea about life. You just, we used to joke about this. We were just living off love,
Right.
quite literally, just enjoying each other. And, we had no idea of the bad things that can happen. It was just, oh, we just enjoying each other. And we were raising our children, and he is, even to this day, I say that he is a good man. He is. He's a good dad and very detailed, even now. He knows what I need, and so we had the children, and we were together, and we'd had difficulties. We did. We had
Hmm.
challenges. Anything that you can think of that a marriage go through, we went through it. But
Hmm.
the difference is we didn't quit on it. We
Right.
just kept going and just kind of, okay, we're gonna get through this. This is life. We're not perfect, and so we were working on our relationship, and he was good with the children. We did science projects together, and we had, I can say, we had a good thing going. Even when my daughter and I got our hair done, he was taking the boys to get their hair done. And he'd wait outside because when women go get their hair done, we in there for hours. And he'd wait outside in the car with the children, for us to come out, with the boys for us to come out. And so we had a lot of challenges. And so when this came, um, he didn't tell me right away. It was like he was kind of hiding it, and I guess concerned about me.
Hmm.
And I didn't know what it was. And then he got sick, and I took him to the hospital, and they gave a name to it. The emergency room doctor knew right away what it was because he was a neurologist. And
Hmm.
I chose not to research it and find out because I
Hmm.
didn't want, to like, okay, this is going to happen. I just wanted to just go with it. And so we did. We had hard times. And I remember him saying, as long as the children are not looking down on me in a wheelchair,
Hmm.
I'm fine. And he handled it like a trooper. And the only thing is when we were in New York, it was hard for him in the winters. And so 2005, we talked about it and we decided to move to Atlanta. And we were in Atlanta, not even a month. And he had an exasperation and got ill. Like he was in the hospital for a month. And then when he got out, he came home for about a few days and he had another exasperation. And so he was literally in the home with us once we got to Atlanta for 30 days, of that much, you know. And so he's been in the nursing home ever since. It has been hard because we were together, you know, whatever. I wasn't sure something, Michael, what you think we should do? What's she doing? He always had an answer, you know, and he always helped with the children. He was hands-on. And I remember during the years, one of my neighbors said, you know, you're a single parent. And I hadn't thought about that. I had a husband I was seeing every day. I'm not a single mother. And then when I thought about it, I was. And I thought about what I had to do. And it was easy for me in that he had already set the foundation. He had for our sons, there are things that you don't do. You don't go outside with dude rag. You don't go out with your pants. So he had already set the foundation. It was just for me to continue on. And we would still go see him. And so he had that presence, you know, they had that respect for him. I'm not gonna go see my dad in your kind of way. And so it was difficult, but it was challenging and it was hard. You know, it's hard to see a 6 foot man, you know, taking charge. And now he is, you know, laid out, you know, just there and not able to give you input, don't understand what's going on. And so it was challenging. Um, but we made it through. We made
And
it
you
through.
gathered strength. You
Yeah, we
gathered
made
strength.
it through.
And something so important that you said, that it speaks to the character of man, several things that you said, that it speaks to the character of man that he is.
Mhm.
Um, that you both were so young and that you made the conscious decision to work through your challenges
Yeah,
and not give
yeah,
up,
yeah.
that you enjoyed the time together. And the thing that really most resonated with me is the foundation
Mhm,
that he laid for his family
mhm,
before he became ill, for his sons to be cognizant of their behavior, of the things that they did or did not do, of their outer adornment and the impression that it does create when people see you, because that's the first impression that people have, is what they see so often.
yeah,
um, uh, all of that speaks to who he is.
yes, yes. And then if I can also add, when I met him, he wasn't spiritual. He wasn't into church. He wasn't.
Mhm.
And we laughed about this, is that he told me that he wanted to be with me so much that he would even go, because I told him, I said, you got to go to church. I go to church. I was, you know, young and I was still going to church every Sunday. And he's like, I'll go, I'll go. And that's how we got him into church. And even so, when we were in New York, he was deacon in the church. He was active, you know, in charge of the audio at the church and setting up and, you know, and even the boys, as they came along, they were young and they were following behind their father, you know, how to set up. And so, he didn't know it, but he was willing to, you know, get to know the Lord through me. And that I take dearly, you know, is that he saw Christ in me to be able to say, you know, I like this woman so much, you know, and it wasn't easy, but it was good. I can say that we had a good relationship, you know.
That is awesome. That is just awesome. It makes me smile listening um,
I
to
miss him. I really do. I miss him. I still see him, but it's different. It's a different person, you know. You know, he
Mhm.
looks the same, but he's not the same person, you know. Yeah.
I can only imagine. It's almost like losing your husband, but he's there.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
yes, and you can literally grieve people, and they're still here.
Yes.
I began to grieve my mom before she left. It would
Mm.
especially happen in church. I don't know why, but I was beginning to grieve her, and she was right here in my house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, because I saw certain things, whether I wanted to embrace it or not, kind of like you saying when you went to the emergency room that night, you didn't do any research. You were
Mm-hmm.
just going to take it as it
Mm-hmm.
came.
As it came. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and so I totally
Yeah.
understand that. I get it. I
And
get it.
then and then you know, with him, um, even now when I go see him, And it has been 19 years, 18 years. And when I go see him, I can't just go in there. I have to literally prepare myself,
Hmm.
say a prayer like, just give me strength, just give me strength. Um, because as I'm having a conversation with you, I can't have a conversation with him in the same way. It's just those things that he remember. He remember he has children, but the conversations are so limited. And so just to see how vibrant he was, how articulate he was, how well read he was, how smart he was. I used to call him the how he could fix anything, he can do anything. And I would say he was the master. I can He could fix anything, but he wasn't professional at anything, and everything. And so I just to see that, it just kind of, even now, 18 years later, it still bothers me like, wow. But I just want to be strong for him. And I think he knows that. When I go visit him, he always tells me, he says, it's good to see you. And when I leave, he said, take care, take care. And I don't know, it's hard. It's hard. And I thought that was the biggest challenge in my life.
Yes. That brings us to Jamal.
Yes, Jamal.
Jamal.
Jamal, yeah. Jamal.
Um, Reading that, when I was reading about your husband, and we had spoken about it briefly, and that he was in care, long-term care.
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, with trying to adjust to having a husband but not having a husband,
Mhm.
and then to lose your son, the fact that you're sitting here talking to us tonight is truly a testament of the power of God.
Yeah, it's not me. Trust me, it's not me. It is the Jesus that lives in me, the God that lives in me. Um, Veronica herself just wants to be in the corner, left alone, and just still crying 11 years later. You know,
Mhm.
Woe is me. How did this happen to me? That's Veronica. But
Mhm.
it's not me. It's that Christ is living in me, that I'm here, that I can talk about it. And to just share this with you, we would get into what happened with Jamal, but I knew early, I would say a month or so after I lost Jamal, that I would be speaking. And Holy Spirit just told me, you're going to be sharing this with others. And I remember, oh, I'm not a talker, but he showed it to me. And I was like, okay, I'm not a talker, but when Holy Spirit puts something in you, you know that it will happen, and you just don't know
Mhm.
when. You don't know
Right.
when. And that's exactly what happened to me. I knew it. I just started preparing myself and just knew that it would happen.
That's
And
why you were journaling, because you
yes,
knew
yes,
the time would come because he revealed it to you.
yes, yes, yeah, yeah.
Well, I see here that you had some different things going on in the days leading up to your tragic loss. Was
Mhm.
there something different going on with you during that time, or?
Well, what happened is it was my birthday. The
Mhm.
last time I saw Jamal was my birthday, April 20th. And this was 2013.
Mhm.
And they all three of my children were out the house at that time. Jaleesa was still in Atlanta, but she had her own apartment. And my
Mhm.
my middle child, Javon, he was at Columbus in college. And
Mhm.
Jamal had just went to as a freshman to college. And so I didn't know how my birthday was going to be, and they had planned it and had it just right coming to the home. And we're gonna spend the day together. And I was surprised to see Jamal, but his brother Javon had got him. That was the plan, to pick him up on his way. And it was just good seeing him. It had only been a few months since we all had been in the house, but it was so good to see him. And so we all just went to see all of them. And so we had went out to eat and we spent time together. They had gifts for me. It was just a nice evening. And we came back to the house, and the oldest two had left to go to where they were going. And so Jamal and I were in the house together. We were talking, And he just loved to talk. He was just so friendly, and he just loved people. And we were talking. It was a good night, and he had revealed something to me that it kind of threw me. He didn't want to go back to school. And in my mind, I was, he didn't do good. And he just, wanted to just change up. And I, as a mom, I didn't want him to quit. That was my thing. And I was like, no, you're going back. And so he did. His sister took him back the next morning. And his freshman year, I would call him every day, the first semester, call him every day, a couple of times a day. And so when I took him back for the new year, Ma, don't call me all the time. You've put a lot into me. You were a great mom. You can trust me. I'm going to do good. I'm going to make you proud. Just, maybe we'll do once a week on a Sunday. And I didn't want to, but I, figured, he's getting older. I had to let him go a little bit. And so Sunday, um, actually the 25th, I went to a funeral, my mom's cousin, distant cousin. And I noticed that there was a call because I turned off my phone and I realized there was a call from him at the end of the service. And I tried calling him back and he didn't pick up and I didn't think anything of it. And so Sunday come, which is our day to talk. And I had a cousin visiting and that cousin needed some information with the internet information. I didn't know it and I called Jamal and he didn't respond. And I called it several times and 11 o'clock at night, and he still didn't answer. But I didn't think anything of it. I just figured it's the weekend. He's, kind of out on his own. And so I left a message on his cell phone. If I don't hear from you, I'm going to be at that school in the morning. I'm going to break your butt. That was just how I would just kind of threaten him. And so the morning, I didn't hear anything from him. I didn't panic, but I was concerned. And so I called the school and they said, well, we're going to do a well check. And they had some people to go into his room and to check their cameras on campus. And they called me back and said, well, we saw he went to his first period class, his first class, and he came back to his dorm. He stayed a little bit and he left back, went back out and got in his black car. And they asked me, did you know anything about a black car? And I said, no. Still didn't think anything of it. So all of this time, we're trying to call him, his sister, his brother, and I, and all. And so we go down and we, do some checks. We fill out a missing person report, and he was missing. Well, in my mind, because of the conversation we had had that Sunday, I'm believing, okay, he didn't want to go back to school. And he's going to, because he had mentioned he wanted to go to barber school that Sunday. So I'm thinking he's doing research, he's somewhere in Macon in a barber school. And so this is what my mind is telling me. And so I'm like, okay, he'll eventually call.
Mhm.
And the church that I was attending at the time, did a search, a couple of friends. I think we may have done 3 or 4, 5 different searches back and forth and canvassing the neighborhood. Well, after the last one, which was probably May 7th, it was, um, and the church had came and we just canvassed neighborhoods. And I know my son, and I said, well, if he was around, he would have been embarrassed and someone telling your family looking for you and he would have come out and mom, and when he didn't come out, I knew that there was something going on. He wouldn't have had me worrying just for, no reason. Even if he didn't contact
Mhm.
me, he would have definitely notified or called his sister and his brother. And when he didn't, things just start swelling. Something is not right.
Mhm.
And 2 days later, they told me that, he was murdered.
Mhm.
They had had the person, um, and they had not only just killed them, but burnt them. And um, I read after the fact is that they cut him, and the person states, "Oh, I dropped his leg, but I didn't want to go back." And I say that because even now, I just can't conceptualize you cutting someone up and then you drop. I just can't. It just does something to me.
you won't, outside of the fact that that's your child, but you're not that type of evil. So you
Mhm.
can't, thank God, you can't connect with that on a mental or
I
analytical
can't.
level.
I
And
really
that's
can't.
okay. So, and leave it out there,
Right,
wherever it is.
right.
It's not for you to um, connect with that. I can't imagine emotionally the impact, the loss of something like that, how it would affect you as a person, your relationships, your day to day life, your mental health, your physical health. Just trying to, first of all, process.
It, I'm gonna say this. I, had have a spiritual walk. I do. I believe in the Lord. I know the Lord. And even with this, it tests me. It was difficult. Your confidence goes down. What you knew or thought you knew, you don't know about people. It changes you. You're fearful, you're scared, you don't trust people. And that's what I did. I withdrew. Um, People I knew, I didn't want to speak to them because you have in the back of your mind the same thing is going to happen to you. I had in the back of my mind the same thing is going to happen to me. And you just don't know who to trust. You're scared. You're and during this time I'm finding out about Jamal, it's running in my mind. All the details that I know, it's playing. No matter what I do, where I go, it just runs in my mind, just runs in my mind that he was stabbed, that he was burned, that he was put in the river, and we couldn't even have a funeral for him, and all that runs in my mind, it plays. So when someone you're trying to focus, you can't focus. All that is, it just plays over and over and over. Then there's the guilt, you know. Um, he told me he wanted to come out. All that just plays in your mind. And if you're not strong, I had the foundation even with my mom.
Mhm.
You don't question, just trust. And I couldn't even pray to even like what's going on. I was numb, completely numb. But I knew that I had a God that loved me, that cared for me, no matter what it looked like, that God was
Mhm.
real in my life. And
Mhm.
so I couldn't pray. I just said, Lord, I trust you. I trust you, Lord. I don't know what's going on, but I trust you. And
That was enough.
that was enough. I didn't think it was enough, but that's all that I had the energy and I could put together to say. I
Mhm.
cried all day. When people were there, I cried. When they left, I cried. I couldn't function. I would, look out the window and I would see people moving and I couldn't understand how were they still going about their day. And I could not even bring myself to get up and get dressed.
Right.
You cry, you watch TV. Um, it, everything. I was doing everything. You even eat. I could not function.
Mhm.
You were depressed. Um, you change. And I saw myself going into this dark hole, but I couldn't do anything to bring myself out. I didn't know what was going on. And I even remember asking myself, like, how do people deal with this? Because it's the best way I can describe it is like someone is literally eating through you. And it's like something that's just in you that's just gnawing at you, just eating at you. You can't function. It's not a pain. It's not painful, but it's uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And I went through that. And just to see people, and then there's another thing. Everyone you see kind of reminds you of him. If
Mm.
someone walks past, that looks like Jamal, whether their complexion, whether they built like him, whether they, about his age. Everyone looks like him. I remember being at LA Fitness and I
Mhm.
was doing a aerobic class. Now it's
Mhm.
usually adults. And one day there was must have been a young guy coming with a grandmother. And I looked around and I said, oh, he looks just like Jamal. My heart sank. And it's instances like that that everybody just reminds you of him. Everyone looks like him. And it's just difficult to function. It's so difficult.
Would you say those steps, that the things that you're describing were your stages of grief?
Oh, it was. It was. There's shock. I went through that. They telling me that
Mhm.
he's no longer, and it's like, wait, I just saw him Sunday. Then there's anger. I was angry at the person. How dare you?
Mhm.
And then you go through denial. Because in
Mhm.
my mind, I'm thinking when he's not calling, he's at the school. He's at
Right,
school. And for
right.
3 years, that's what, oh, Jamal's at school. I hear from him because he's at school. And
Mhm.
so you find different coping mechanisms. You eat. I ate, things that he liked, ice cream. You just do different things just to try to cope.
I
Yeah.
remember my mother eating ice cream a lot after her father died. She
Mhm.
would eat ice cream because he loved ice cream. It's amazing the things that we find comfort in. And like you spoke of, some of the stages, the
You look for
denial,
that
the anger,
connection. You
the
look for that
bargaining,
connection.
the depression. And then I guess after you go through all of that, acceptance comes. And
Yeah.
it's different in the different ways of the stages of grief.
Mhm.
But let me ask you this. This is something that I never knew. And of course, they list them: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But did yours happen in that order?
No,
Or
no, it's no order. And then you can go through shock, right? You would figure that shock would be at the beginning, and it could very well be.
that's a
And
part of
then,
denial from
right,
what
right,
I read.
right. And then what happens is you can go through bargaining, you can go through all of the steps, and then one day you're in shock again. Like, I just can't, it could be 2 or 3 years later. It's like, I just can't believe. So there's no order and there's no rhyme to reason, and each person is different, even with the bargaining. I think I went through all of the steps maybe 2 or 3 times, because if this happened in 2013, I can say to you that I did not was not healed until 2021. I went through back and forth, you go and repeat in you and denial. And I even remember when it first went through, when I first, went through the stages and it first happened. I remember saying to the Lord, Lord, I've been through a lot. Just get me over toward the end of my journey. I remember saying that. I didn't want to go through the steps, and
The pain.
it was just so hard, and I knew something was going to come that was difficult for me and long and hard, and I didn't want to go through that. And so I
Mhm,
said, Lord, just get me over. I've been through a lot, but I've
mhm.
learned a lot through it. And a lot of times they say things happen to bring you closer so that you can see that the Lord is real. And that's one of the lessons that I've learned. His promises. He said that he would never, no, never, no, never leave us. And I have found that to be true. I look back and I know that what I went through, it's been over 11 years, 11 and a half years. And I look back, I still remember, but I know that it was no one but the Lord that each day just gave me the strength I need to get through another day, through another day. And so I know that He is real. I know that God is real. You
One
know,
day at a time.
one day at a time, one day at a time.
So if you had to categorize your path to healing, that would be a good mantra. One day
At a
at
time,
at a time.
at a
And
time.
I love the name of the journal, Blessed Beyond Bereavement. That is going to be a book, or have you already written the book?
I have written it. I've written it by myself. If I can share with you how that came about. I mentioned
Yes.
to you about journaling. Well, when we were young, my mother used to always try to get us to journal or jot down things that have happened so we can always refer to it. And so when I first found out that he was murdered, I started journaling just the whole process. When we went to court, I just wrote down who we spoke with. I wrote down all of the details just because it was habit to journal. And let's say about 6 months in, Holy Spirit told me, you're going to do a book. And I just went, I'm not a writer, it just didn't seem real, but I heard it so clear. And so I tried to, because I knew that it was real, I tried to start writing, but nothing happened. And it wasn't until 2019, I would tell people, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book. I told my family, I'm going to write a book. And I told my mother's oldest brother, my Uncle Curtis, I said, I'm going to write a book. And so it was the end of 2019. And he says, oh, did you start that book? And I said, no, no, no. He said, well, you got to get to it because I'm up in age and I want to read it, you know? And so that was the first sign that it would be soon, right?
Mhm.
And then I couldn't go to sleep. You know, my pattern of sleep was off during this whole time. Even now, it's still off. And I remember watching a commercial in the middle of the night, and it was talking about writing a book. If you want to write a book, this is the way to do it, and call us and all. And that was the second one. And then the third one was I was watching something I can't remember, and it said blessed bereavement. And I said, whoa, you know, like that was the title because I didn't have a title. And I said bereavement, blessed. And then I just worked with the blessed beyond because at this point I'm much better than I had been in 2013, 14, and 15. Um,
Mhm.
and so I said, okay, that's it, Lord. That's it. And I was at the time making steps because I had started volunteering at a neighborhood elementary school.
Mhm.
And it was January of 2020. And I told that teacher, I says, Lord has put in my spirit that I have to take time for myself, you know, write a book. And she said, oh, Keys, that's good. That's good. Okay, we'll keep in touch. Can I reach out to you? And I said, sure, you can. And so the end of January, the beginning of February was my last day at the school. And I just started writing. I got the computer and I just started writing from my notes. And I had no idea what I was doing. I had thought to use this company, but I was like, nope, I don't want anyone telling me I can't write this, you can't write that, you can't say that. And so I said, I'm just going to do it on my own. And lo and behold, COVID came. And I'm still just writing and writing and writing. And I thought, you know, toward the end, I think it was October, November, I said, let me try to publish this. And my son knew someone who was cousin or family member, uh, helped with books. And she helped me set the format and did the cover of the book. And so we got it together and we put it out. I would say it's still out, um, but there's work that needs to be done. You know, it's just
Where can it be purchased?
Amazon. It's on Amazon. Blessed Beyond Bereavement by Veronica Y. Keys. And it's a good read. I've had people to tell me that it's a good read. And when I read it, and I do from time to time, and I'm impressed. I say, Lord, this is not me. This is you. This is you that have helped me to write this. And so um, it
I
shares in.
I normally am able to read before the interviews, but I just, as you know, did a women's retreat and have been working on it quite a while.
Okay.
So you're going to have to come back when I read it,
Okay. That
even if
sounds
it's
good.
just for 15 minutes.
That
So
sounds
we
good.
can discuss because I like to be able to entertain what my guests have done
Hmm.
intelligently and have
Hmm.
an intelligent exchange
Yes.
about the book. So I
Yes.
definitely, and then we can promote it. But of course, we're going to include the information with the show
Okay.
to, as to where it can be purchased and
Mhm.
the name of it again. And of course, your name as the author. I'm so excited that you had the strength to do that. That
Yeah.
speaks volumes about
Yes.
how you've healed and
Mhm.
come through the stages of grief. How has your healing changed you and brought you into your purpose? Or has it done so?
It has it changed me, as I mentioned that I withdrawn from people. And over the last maybe year or two, I've tried reaching out and I have reached out to friends and I've apologized. And they, oh, we understand you. It was a lot for you. And they apologize. We didn't know what to, I didn't know what to say to you. And that's okay. You know, I understand it was hard for me. I know it was hard for people. And so I've rekindled friendships. Uh, and I've rekindled the friendships. I know my purpose is to write the book, and I have still work to do on that, although it's out. And I do believe that to my healing is for me speaking about it, sharing with others um, what happened to Jamal. And if I can say this is that every time I hear that a mother has lost a child, it disturbs my spirit, not just because I lost Jamal, but because I know what that parent, that mother is going to endure. Um, and that in itself is a lot. You know, I knew the Lord and I still went through it, and it's hard. It's hard. And it's that mother in you, that mother. Although you know the Lord, you know that they where they're at, they would be well, but you just still,
That's a lot.
hey, you miss them. You miss their
That's a
presence.
lot.
You miss their touch. Yes.
I have not birthed children, but I can't imagine because it is not what we're not taught that we're going to bury our children.
Mm-hmm.
We're taught that our children are going to bury us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard even when a child maybe dies of childhood cancer or something natural,
Mm-hmm.
but for it to be horrendous
Yeah.
at the hand of someone else is an added layer. And you're the second mother that I've had on Safe Space. And listening to you talk about Jamal's case, it's very similar to Teresa Miller.
Mm-hmm.
She's a friend of mine that lost her daughter, and she was dismembered. She was thrown into a river. And it's the level of heinousness to think about on top of losing your baby and you'll never see them again or hear them again on earth. Um, you said it best. It's like a bad movie I perceive playing through your head over and over again. The thoughts of the knowledge that you have, not that you know the specifics exactly of how things played out, but just to have the knowledge of what happened to your child is an overwhelming emotion. It had to be during your early stages of trying to process and disseminate all of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And see, you mentioned that we're not prepared to lose our child. We're not prepared to even lose people. You know what I'm saying? We don't talk about grief. We don't talk about loss. And that is what I want my book to do. That's what I want to do, is to be able to speak to because I went through so many different emotions, and I at one point thought I was losing my mind. And at the time, my mother was in New York. My children, they had their own lives. I had friendships and friends, but how do you tell a person that you literally feel like you're losing yourself? You
Right.
can't, and so you can't speak of that, and so we're not even prepared for even you know death of a loved one. And
You're
it's
right.
difficult. It's yeah,
You're right.
because I just kept asking myself over and over, how on earth did other mothers before me do this? I just kept asking myself. And then the one person that I thought of was Emmett Till's mom. I could not fathom I'm going through this. I couldn't imagine it. And so it's difficult, and it's something that we need to talk about more often.
You're right. You're absolutely correct. But now I hear your purpose. Your purpose is to utilize your grief and your journey to bring this with your story to the forefront of conversations with families to prepare us for the death of our loved ones,
Yes,
to
yes.
give us a blueprint of how to deal with the grief, how to make it through, leaning and depending upon God. And it's ironic, you and Teresa both mentioned journaling as a coping mechanism throughout because her daughter was missing for 70 days before they
Oh,
found her. And when they found her, it was a high profile trial in Chicago. So she had to sit through all of that and hear the heinousness, her and her ex-husband, her child's father. Um, it was just a lot. And journaling and talking to God was her vehicle in which brought her through in a place of calm so she could cope and not lose her mind. So some of the things that so these things that you speak of in this book give people tools
Yes.
and in a template, for lack of a better term, to be able to start to take one day at a time, put one foot in front of another, because that's about all you can deal with when you're dealing with something of this magnitude.
And in my book, I am very open. Like I state, I was mad. I state that I didn't like the person. I state that I was angry, and
Mhm.
so, and it's okay to do that. We're taught that we're not supposed to say things, and I just, all of that came out, and I was honest with, you do feel like you're alone. You do just cry all the time. And all of these emotions, no one tells you they're normal. The thing is not to stay in those things as you're going through your healing. The
Mhm.
key is not to stay in it long. Like I can think about Jamal, and I can smile now. When it first happened and I lost him, I would think about him, and then what the guy did to him would play in my mind. So
Right,
it would distort my good memory of my son.
right.
And I was just so sad and I was just so bitter. Now I can think about him, and the key, not to last, not to stay in it too long, you know. And to me, that has been the key. I still
That's a
miss him.
blessing.
Yep, I still miss him. I still think about him, but I know, okay, Veronica, just for a little bit longer, then you got to cut it off, think of something else.
That's good. But
Mhm.
that's a tool.
That's it too.
That's a tool of coping and moving forward. And you said something key just a second ago. You said not to stay there,
Hmm.
not to stay there. So the book being an instructional tool and a template of showing people, telling people tangible things to do, not to stay there. Veronica, your thoughts can't dwell in that place. Veronica, you have to move past there, and being honest with yourself and trying to work through the grief and the stages of grief. So God forbid, we know there will be mothers now
Hmm.
that are in the beginning stages of grief and mothers to come. What advice would you give to them?
Well, I would tell them to allow yourself to grieve. If it means being alone, then do what you're comfortable with. If you don't want
Right.
to talk to anyone, don't force yourself to talk. If you need to be alone, it's okay because it's an outlet and you have to go through something. I'm not saying being it forever, but if you, that's how you're going to start out with. You're going to cry, you're going to miss them, you're going to think about what happened, how they, you lost them. You're going to think about all of that. And it may be for a month, it may be for 2 months, it may be for 3 years. It may be for 10 years. The thing is, if you're ready to come from that point, you may not believe in the God that I serve. You may have your own higher, being. Um, it's to trust them. It's to seek them. It's to lean on them. It's to depend. And that's what I've done, leaned on the Lord. I called out to him. There were times when it was just so difficult. I would just sing a hymn. I need thee every hour. I need thee every hour. And I would just sing it. And so there are steps. There are steps to getting out. It's trusting and it's just letting go. But there is a process that you go through as far as you're going to grieve, you're going to scream, you're going to cry, and don't feel like you're doing something wrong. You have to get all of that out. You have to get that anger out. And so, yeah, you're going to go through that, and it's okay. And I would implore family members just to understand. I've heard so many sayings, oh, at least you have other children. At least, different things. Oh, he's with the Lord. And all that may be true, but for a mother or a parent grieving, that doesn't mean anything. That does
Mhm.
not mean anything. And it's hurtful. You
I can
know,
imagine
yeah, you
that
hear
could
it
be
all.
and off-putting, and they don't mean
Yeah, they
anything
don't. They don't.
terrible by it, but when you're in that place of grief, it
Hmm.
hurts
It
because
hurts. Yeah.
no
Yeah.
child can take the place of another child,
Yeah.
and you love all of your children.
Yeah, yeah. And it does hurt. And that's why I've heard several people tell me, say, I just didn't know what to say. And,
Mm.
to me, that was the key. If just hold me, just give me a hug. It's difficult because we haven't been taught, again, we haven't been taught how to grieve or what to say or what to do, so it's all understandable. Um,
And maybe
it's a
that's your
journey.
next book, Veronica. Maybe that's your next book that you can focus on, because I've heard this over and over again, whether it's about sickness, long-term sickness, and you're caregiving, because I was in that position with my mom. So
Mhm.
often people did not know how to assist me.
Mhm.
Uh, the last 5 months of her life, I was in the hospital with her.
Okay.
So people will say, well, if you need anything,
Mhm.
well, I remember one night I was in ICU with her, and my boss from my job
Mhm.
sent a coworker with a bag of goodies from Publix,
Mhm.
just juices, fruit,
Mhm. Mhm.
a few deli items. It was a help because I didn't have to go downstairs to get something to eat that night.
Mhm.
So I heard this lady say that lost her husband prematurely as a young woman. Don't ask people, do you need something?
Mhm.
Just do
Do it.
something
Let's do it. Yeah. Yeah.
when they're in that situation. So on to the grief, like with you, your next book could be the just saying, I don't know what to say to you. Not that they're in a better place. Yes, they are.
Yes.
Not that you have other children. Yes, you do. But I don't know what to say. So I'm just going to hug you, or we're just going to pray. Because sometimes, so often, when someone has experienced something to the magnitude that you did, they can't pray.
They can't. Yeah. 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 And you say that, and I smile because I was told that from a family member, distant family member, that I should do a workbook from the book, and okay, I haven't worked on that yet, but and so that's why I smile when you say that, because it's confirmation that I need to
I hear
start
you.
working
That's
on
what
it.
I heard you say.
Yes,
I
yes.
heard you say, we need to talk about this.
Hmm.
We need to have tools to cope. We need to have these conversations again
Hmm.
before the loss happens, whether it's a husband, a mother, a son, or whomever. Because we don't, you're right. I said we are not equipped to lose our children. And you pointed out so poignantly, we're not equipped to lose
Hmm.
anyone, even though we know it's going to happen,
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
even if it's our parents.
Yeah.
Um, in the normal progression of time, none of us are going to be here forever.
Hmm.
So a workbook would be great.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to definitely pray on it and work on it too. Yeah.
Well, I have enjoyed you so
Mhm.
much.
Uh,
And thank you so very much for being brave, courageous, transparent, and sharing your testimony with us and moving through your stages of grief into a place of your purpose through your healing that could be a blessing to others. We do not go through difficult times or anything that God brings us through just for ourselves. It is for others to know that there's always hope in God. There's
always.
always another side. There's always a continuation that we can come through that thing, no matter how hard. And you're a living testimony of that. And you're utilizing your experience to help others along. That's a win. And I know our God is smiling, and I know He's proud. And I know that you're just getting started, just listening to you tonight, because I hear your heart with just the statement you made that resonated with me so deeply, that we're not prepared, and we're not. And if you can produce these tools through your grief, it will not have been in vain. Countless ones that you can assist and help walk through this journey. You may have grief counseling in your future. Who knows? Because you have a very calming voice,
Mhm.
and you articulate your pain very well in a way that anyone could connect with and understand. So, who knows what is in your future regarding this? So, give us the information of the book again, where it can be purchased. If it's just Amazon, just give us all that information. If anyone wants to talk to Veronica? Are you open to that?
I am.
Like mothers, okay, if anyone wants to reach you that may see you on this show, you can reach out to me here at Safe Space, and I will be more than happy to put you in
Okay.
contact with Veronica, um, to speak to her about her journey, her book, or whatever you'd like to speak to her regarding. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, as well as YouTube. All of it is under Safe Space with Shelby Arrington. Veronica, is there anything you'd like to add before we leave?
Yes, I will. If I can show the book, is that okay?
Absolutely.
So it is Blessed Beyond Bereavement. It's a picture of Jamal on it, by Veronica Y. Keys. I invite you all to read the book and just see my journey, what I went through emotionally, mentally, and then just how at the end it shows you pictures of Jamal and a couple of just how he was as a teenager, and the love that he imparted into us and he shared with us and he gave to us. I want to thank you all. I thank you, Shelby, for the opportunity to be able to share and talk about Jamal, my Jamal Keys. Thank you.
And you're on I'm sorry, you're on Amazon. The book
Amazon.
the book
Yes,
is
it's
on
on
Amazon. It can be
Amazon. Yes.
purchased there. I'm going to get my copy. And as I said before, even if it's just 15, 20 minutes, I would like to talk to you again
Okay.
about the book and
Sounds
what
good.
I learned from it and the things that resonated with me. And we can have an open dialogue. So I'm giving you an
Okay.
invitation to please come back to Safe
I most
Space,
certainly will. I
because
most
that's something that if I had had a little more time, I would have already read it. But I'm going to read it, and
I
I'd love to discuss it with you on here. And who knows what type of revelation the
mm,
two of us will
right.
come upon that may bless someone as well. But for tonight, thank you again for your transparency and for sharing your testimony. Thank you all for listening. We will see you again very soon. And to my Safe Space audience, I want to thank you for your support. We're going into our third year almost. I think we're about 3 or 4 months from our third year. And I never thought this would be here this long. So I want to thank you all for your support. Again, Veronica,
Congratulations to you.
thank you, darling. Again, Veronica, thank you for coming on. And this is
Yes,
Shelby
thank
from
you.
Safe Space. You all have a wonderful evening.